Wow. Well, welcome everyone. I know we'll have a few other people joining us here and there as we get going. I know it's early on a Wednesday morning, especially the Wednesday morning before the July 4th weekend, although it feels strange, I think, for all of us at this time. But again, welcome to the Undergraduate Research Workshop Series. Today, as you can see on the screen, we have a wonderful postdoc, Dr. Christina Morra, who's going to lead our workshop today. We're also joined by Neil Vargas, who's a wonderful Vista in our office. And again, my name is Gareth Jones, for any folks who haven't joined us before. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Service Learning and Undergraduate Research. And we have a couple more of these workshops. We have one next week for how to just give a great presentation. And so this week and next week are really good for anyone who's going to be presenting at the Expo, the Summer Expo, here in a few weeks, which will be upon us before we know it. And it will be virtual again, so we're excited to be able to offer it in the virtual environment through Canvas again. I just saw an abstract get submitted today. Those abstracts are due by the 10th of July. So just a quick reminder on that. So, all right, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful speaker today. So Dr. Christina Morra, this is probably your third or fourth time you've worked with us, I think, and you presented on multiple subjects with us. But we're so excited to have you join us today. If you don't mind, maybe you have a slide for it, but just kind of tell them a little bit about your research first and maybe what a postdoc merit scholar is.
So good morning, everybody. This is going to be an interactive Zoom meeting this morning, so I'm going to be asking you for your thoughts, and then at the end we're going to do a section where we're in the chat window, so make sure you can access all of that. Like Garrett said, I'm Dr. Christina Morra. So I am here at UAB for almost a year now as what my slide says, a Merit Erracta postdoc fellow. So you guys, I believe, are all undergrads. So I did my undergrad degree in Cedar Crest College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's a small women's college where I studied genetic engineering and chemistry. After that, I was a lab technician for a year at the Medical University of South Carolina down in Charleston. And both locations, I studied the pathogenic fungus, Cryptococcus neoformans. And that kind of kicked off my love of microbiology. While I was a technician, I decided that grad school really was for me. I really wasn't sure if I wanted to do the whole grad school's a big commitment. So I took a year to make sure that I was up for that and decided I was. So I applied for grad schools. Last year, I completed my PhD. The program was called Integrative Molecular and Biomedical Sciences at Baylor College of Medicine. But when people ask what I have a PhD in, I say microbiology because that was what my research was. I transitioned from studying a pathogenic fungus to the probiotic bacteria that live in our intestines. So I got to learn a little bit more about human physiology, at least in the intestines. And then here at UAB, I have been studying the pathogen Streptococcus pneumonia, the primary cause of bacterial pneumonia. And you can imagine that right now, pneumonia is pretty big on research fronts. So I've been in the lab. I've been back in the lab for 4 weeks since our COVID shutdown. So I study the bacteria's ability to produce a exterior slime called biofilm, and how that biofilm allows it to coat our noses before becoming a systemic pathogen and trying its best to kill us. So that's what I do as a postdoctoral fellow. The part of my title that says Merit Erracta refers to a grant that I'm paid by called the Erracta Grant. And through that grant, 25% of my time and 75% of my pay is for teaching. So I'm one of 7 kids, and I am the oldest, and I spent a lot of time growing up doing homework with my little siblings and I really liked being challenged to find a new way to explain something so that something that made sense to me could make sense to someone else. And so I'm taking a lot of classes right now on how to be the best undergrad faculty. I know here at UAB, you guys have some great faculty who have taken advantage of some of these classes, and I'm looking to be trained and gain expertise in communicating my knowledge better and teaching your age group well. So with that in mind, if at any point you have some feedback for me, feel free to email. This is my first time presenting how to create the perfect poster here. I did it back at Baylor as a grad student, but if you guys know of a better way or something wasn't clear, please let me know. You can either do that through the private chat or an email. My email's on here and it's on the last slide at the end, so that if you guys want to contact me at any point for any other questions, grad school or whatever else is on your brain, let me know. And I will do my best to get back to you and be helpful. So in the interim, like was pointed out at the beginning, you guys are all preparing to present posters. So let's go over this presentation. There's a few different parts about what is a poster and technically how to make the slide a poster slide, and then some on how to make it a good poster, because there's a long range between just doing something and doing it well. And then at the end, we're going to critique some in the chat. So we're going to have some examples I pulled that are, some of them are mine, my earlier ones, and then some of them are from the internet. I won't be offended if you critique them. Please do. I know that everything can always be better. So at this point, you guys can unmute yourselves and give me some ideas. What is the point of a poster? You guys are building one. The point is not just to do one. What is the point? I can see about 3 different faces on my little square because I'm doing screen share. So when you guys speak, hopefully some of you will choose to speak. Give me your name first so I can remember names and such. Nobody has any idea why they're making a poster? You guys are real good at busy work if you're not sure why you're doing it. Anybody want to unmute? Hi.
Hello, my name is Micah. I would guess that the main purpose of presenting a poster would be to take all the research that you've done like over a period and try to summarize it within like one space that's easiest to summarize and like convey to other people.
Right. So when you guys, are doing research, one of the most important things that you learn over time is that it's really important to just look at your data, because you will get more information when you put it all together and really see a big picture than you will just doing a single experiment at a time, and really it'll help you bring everything together and draw your own conclusions. Anybody else? There are a bunch.
Somebody in the chat said that it's to show information.
Yeah, so that gets at a big point that we're going to talk about, is communication. So it's part of this is a way for you to get better and know your data better. But part of it is to talk to someone else about your data. So like Micah started us out with, it's a visual representation of your data. You want it to be concise and focused. And if I'm going to look at 50 posters, you want me to remember something. So keep in mind, when you look at your poster, what is the one take-home message? And that take-home message should be in like size 90 font, and it should be called your title. If that's all I remember, that should be enough for me to be interested in what you did. And for me to want to come to your poster and want to stay at your poster and not walk right by it, You want it to be visually attractive to draw viewers into a conversation. And something that gets missed sometimes is that this is specifically a standalone tool. So you guys have attended talks where the slides don't have enough information for you to know what the speaker was going to say if you weren't there. But a poster, I have to be able to read the poster and know what's going on, even if you're not there. So make sure when you're looking at it, they don't need you to explain. You've written things out and made diagrams well enough that your poster can stand on its own. So when you are attending a presentation, say like today's, when are you the most attentive? Beginning, middle, end, sometime? What do I have to do to get your attention? At what point are you paying the most attention? I'm gonna try and, okay, I have the chat window open too, so if people are not feeling vocal this morning, chat, I will try and keep all of the things going. We've got like, I don't know, 20 of you? My goal is to get each of you to like communicate one thing. It's early, I get it. I also have not had breakfast, but all right, at the beginning. So data, time and time again, has shown that you're completely correct. In the beginning, you have the most chance of catching my attention. And if you don't catch it in the beginning, I'm walking right by. And then I don't get to hear your science. I don't get to hear your name. I don't get to be excited about working with you. You've lost your chance if you're not excited in the beginning. The problem is you can't say everything in the beginning. So the average poster talk that you're going to prepare in terms of a spiel to just kind of chat is aimed at around 5 minutes. You should be able to communicate all of the big points in 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is not just the beginning. By 5 minutes, you're down here in the I don't care range of your audience. And that's a problem. So it's your job to make the audience care about your science. That's what you're there. You are literally standing there dressed up as a salesperson for your science. So what can we do to improve the attention span of our audience? I keep meaning to put like the Jeopardy music on my phone and for conversations like this. So in the chat, somebody can unmute. I think we've got like 30 of you here. What can we do for science, for anything else? You guys are communicating daily. How do you catch someone's attention?
I would say by making what you're presenting engaging, maybe.
Right. I don't know.
If you're trying to, oh, I'm sorry. My name is Marina. Hi.
Hi, Marina.
Yeah, but if you're trying to make a point in 5 minutes, I don't know if that'd be the best way to do it. But I know just going to lectures, the professors who are always like the most entertaining in the professors' classes, who I always get the most out of, are the ones who are always asking questions. You know, they want feedback all the time, so it keeps you thinking.
Yeah. So one of the strategies you'll see in like my very first poster that we'll get to in a minute is my undergrad research mentor. All of her titles were questions because it was the question that was being answered by the poster. And so if you read that question, you're like, that is a good question. Let me answer it for me. Questions are a great way to do that. Make sure within the so Micah said that make sure within that 5 minutes you show why your research might be important, right? The significance and making people care, critical. And another way is people get excited about conclusions. Like you have answered the question, you've asked the question, which is important, and then you have a fact, you have a takeaway. So one way that we're going to highlight about keeping someone's attention is coming to an end. You have many stories within your story. So format your poster such that there are blocks that each contain a question, an exciting thing that you did and an answer. And you want to bold those questions and those answers, because that's what's going to be exciting to people. So there are some key points that you want to get about your poster before you start. There's no point, if you've ever like written an essay and been like, this is a great essay, you've written 5 pages and oops, it was only supposed to be 2. Well, now you've wasted a lot of your time. So the things you need to know before you start, if you're going to a conference, most conferences or assignments will have some sort of page that says, this is what you actually need to make. Most importantly, this is the size of the poster. Because if you make a poster that's too big, you're going to roll up half your poster and no one's going to see it. And so you need to know the size. I've given you the standard, but by no means assume that that's going to be the poster size everywhere. You need to know where you're going. So we started, Gareth said that this was, this is on Canvas this time, but usually you're in some sort of conference room or a big lecture hall, or maybe in Birmingham, BJCC hosts conferences. So you need to know where you're going, because if you're late, professionalism goes out the window. So the length of the poster session. Sometimes you only have 20 minutes to get as much attention, as much people as you can. Sometimes you have to be prepared for 2 hours. And for many of us, that means being attentive to what you're wearing on your feet. It may also mean being attentive to having a water bottle. If you're going to be talking for 2 hours, these are things that will make you feel the most prepared. So pay attention to these little details as you're going into what kind of poster you're presenting. You need to know the authors. So hopefully for any of you that have done research, you have become aware that authorship in science is very important. And the ranking of those authors has a massive significance, and the names that you use have a significance. You can choose to, I publish under Christina Morra. And the people that you are publishing with, the people that you've done your research with, may have a name that they specifically want to be associated with their science. And it's up to you as the person making this to know that and ask. You also need to, so a poster should usually have, like, if the name of the person that's up here, my first window says Mary Renner. So if it's your poster, it's going to be Mary Renner, comma, Christina Morra, comma, PhD. If you have a bachelor's degree, you can put BS behind your name, you can put MS behind your name, but you should be aware of the degrees that the person has earned and attribute that. And then finally, affiliation. So you each are part of a school here at UAB, but I may be associated with a different school or with a different university. Maybe your boss in the lab, the PI, works with a collaborator. That you need to know exactly what affiliation they publish under, and that's important for their grants, that their university needs to be recognized in every way that this is published, and this is considered a form of publishing. So, and then finally, and really importantly, and sometimes it gets overlooked, you need official permission to present this information. So whoever you worked with should have a copy of your PowerPoint before the end and okay that this is okay to be shared. One reason for that is patents. If you're working towards, or your lab is working towards submitting a patent for some part of your research, like a vaccine, that science can't have been published anywhere yet. And your poster counts as publishing. So if you screw up a patent for your PI, that's going to be a problem. So always make sure that the PI and whoever's working with you knows what you're presenting, partially so that, they make sure it's accurate. You could have misunderstood something. And then partially because you want them to know that you have the professionalism to ask, to be confident that what you're presenting has their permission to be presented. This is something that you're not going to be denied. This is like, they know that you went in with a need to present this, but run it by the lab. That's important. So there are two styles of posters. This is considered old-fashioned, but if you are at a small university that doesn't have a poster printer, which is not your problem here at UAB, you might be doing this single-page slide printout that you mount on top of construction paper and then on top of a board. This girl in this picture is doing it in one of the most professional ways I've seen that done, but usually it comes out looking like a bit of a craft project. And so nowadays we present this. It's a single large printout that's usually 3 feet by 4 feet. And everything is printed on the same page. You roll it up in a poster tube and you wind up walking around with something like an arrow quiver on your back for as you move around a conference with your poster. So as you can see here, oh no, now I can't move the chat. Okay. It's gonna start up with a title. You're gonna have the name in author of like ranking. So I was the presenter. I did most of this work. These two are collaborators. This was my PI. This was where all of us worked. At my former university, Baylor College of Medicine, there was a partnership with Texas Children's Hospital, so their logos are at the top of mine. And then you have very clear headings for abstract. Hypothesis is usually a really good thing, especially in early posters where you don't maybe have as many conclusions because you don't know the data yet, but you can tell someone, this is what I thought and this is why. I like to have, so you want to have as little writing as possible. So whenever possible, you want to change mechanisms and protocols into pictures. But you want those to be accurate. So this was one of the first posters I did in grad school. This is interesting. So the next part, like we said in the beginning, there are several reasons you might be presenting a poster, and it's important for you to know what your goal is. So what are some goals that we could have for your poster presentation? I'll pull the chat back up. What does the numbers next to the author mean? Good question. I will go back and address that. No, back. So here, I'm associating my name with these two affiliations. So I was affiliated with Baylor College of Medicine and Texas Children's Hospital, while Daniel and Marcus were associated with the City of Hope Institute in California. So if you have multiple associations, you need to find, it's very similar to the way you would reference in a paper, the ones and the twos and the stuff like that. So that's what that meant. So what might you want to have? What is the goal of your research? What do you want someone else to do? All right, I'll start you off with one. You might want someone to discuss the content. You guys are young scientists. You are gaining expertise from people that come and communicate with you and share their ideas and their information, and just having a real discussion about your science. Maybe what you could do next, what you could have done. What's another idea?
Get invited to work at a different lab. Is that possible?
Yeah.
I've never actually been to one of these, but I guess it's kind of like almost a job interview in some ways.
Exactly. This is like scientist networking at their prime. I recognize this is an invalid sentence for most of you, but many of these conferences have poster sessions over wine. It makes us chattier. Yes, this is prime opportunity for networking, especially as I don't know what year you guys are falling into, but I imagine you guys skew on the upper end of undergrad. If you guys are getting towards grad school years, and you think you want to work at in a particular lab, it's a great way to network. It's also a way in grad school to get a postdoc. So yeah, networking is a key example. So do you want someone, are you just not in the mood? You just want someone to learn something and leave? Maybe you've got a huge crowd. You don't have time to have a big discussion with every single person. And then for instructors or faculty giving presentations, they want to inspire people. They want people to be like, that's awesome that you do that. I want to do that. But what's important for all of us at every level to understand is all of you here today are inspiring to someone. It may be your best friend who comes by and was like, I had no idea you were this cool. And they then join a lab. It may be, if this was at some of the universities, or even I this year judged the Birmingham City Science Fair. And some of those kids said that they had come to UAB for a poster session for some of the undergrads, and they thought that was so cool that they joined that lab as a high school student and got to present their science. So like in this kind of a forum, you are an inspiration to someone there. And it's important for us to recognize that we are there representing ourselves and the lab and the science and just scientists in general. And then like was stated earlier, a collaboration and networking opportunities. So all of these options give you a little bit of insight on how you're going to make your presentation. If it's all about inspiring others to join your science, you're going to lay it out a little bit differently than a need for collaboration. Because a collaboration, you might just have a bunch of different projects and say, I would love an expert who can do structural biology because I don't do that. I would love a scientist who studies this type of model organism because I don't do that. So your poster can reflect what your goal is, and it's important for you to know what your own goal is before you start. So like we covered this a bit when we went over the poster. These are the general sections. This list is really only here because you guys are going to get the slides at the end of this. So this is like a checklist for yourself. References in an introduction section should be very few. Do not have a 30 section reference section. Your project is probably stemming off of a previous publication in that lab. So you can have that reference and maybe one big review that covers all of the introductions, like in my case of strep pneumonia. You don't need to do a lit review for a poster. We talked about authors, but there are people who don't quite help enough to be an author, but should be acknowledged. And then there are groups like this undergraduate research workshop and the office that Gareth works in, that you want to thank for giving you the opportunity to host this. And then you might thank someone like your undergrad, one of your professors who inspired you to start research, but you don't work in their lab. And then it's also important here to know who is paying, if not you to do the research, all of the people who worked with you. The funding source of the lab needs to be cited. So this slide tells you click by click how to make sure that your poster is going to print at the right size and not just as a single page, because I've done that. That's a sad day when you go print a 4-foot page thing and it turns out that you're only printing on 12 inches in the center. It's not a good day. It wastes $50 in printing costs. Don't do it. This site at the bottom has templates that you can download, and you can just start with that idea. It also has additional tips that we can that you can look into down the road if you get kind of stuck on what you want yours to look like. So, basic format. This is a good way to start. You can put in little like add shape, make a box, have the box say title, and you're going to fill it in later. And I've given you general rules on what sizes to put font that you'll actually be able to see from a distance, because sometimes that's hard to judge when you're just looking at it on a computer screen. So what's important to recognize here is this is just one way. We're going to look at several at the end about how to how you can move these boxes around to make your data look its best. But at some point, you just have to start. So this is a good way for you to start. In the chat, Gareth has added that UAB, and I didn't know this, has poster templates already made for you. So you guys can download these from the link that he just added from the chat box and get your start that way. So the default is to use a light colored background on a dark text. That saves your printing services from having to print black all the way across and make it real pricey. It also makes it just generally easier to read. But if you guys have a lot of microscopy, and specifically fluorescent microscopy, a dark background might be easier. It really depends on how your science is going to be best visualized. And like I said, this is a suggestion. Don't think this is the only way or the best way. So when you're getting started, you guys have generated some data. So when you start, just copy and paste your data in the results section and see how you want that data to flow. What is your story? What's your start to finish? And remember, it doesn't have to be chronological. In science, you read a paper and it all sounds like this step led to this step, led to this step, led to this step. I've written science papers, guys. That is not how it works. You make the story make sense regardless of the order in which you did those experiments. So you want it to be clear, and that's the order you list things in is a big part of that. So if others helped you with your work, make sure you list them in the acknowledgement sections. Science is collaborative. Independence is a lie, guys. You did not do this by yourself. No one has done science by themselves. When in doubt, acknowledge someone extra. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel recognized that their assistance was useful. It will make someone else extend that olive branch to the next person down the line. Authorship is a little bit trickier. You need to make sure that the PI agrees that that person has earned authorship, but acknowledgements, if they are professional, go with them. I did get laughed at once for trying to acknowledge my cats. They were helpful. I practiced at them. They, were a good audience, but that was not considered professional. A big part of this is editing. And most importantly, give other people the time to read your poster and edit it thoughtfully. You should have it done with enough time to hit save, put it away, and look at it 2 days later yourself and make some edits. Every single poster I have published or I have presented, it's printed and all of a sudden it's 5 feet tall next to me. That's when you notice that you forgot a period. You forgot to italicize that species name. You misspelled your boss's name wrong. You will see it when it's 5 feet tall. And you will have to stand next to it and feel squirmy about your typo for 2 hours. Just edit it. Just do your best. And then practice your spiel. One thing that I only learned halfway through grad school is you're going to print out the slide big, but you can also then print out a single page version of it through your normal printer and just look at it and practice it. So you only have 5 minutes to say all of these things impressively. How are you going to do that the best? You're going to have practiced. Interesting. Oh, more tips. When you're making that poster, if you hold down the control button, it'll allow you to move things over just a little bit because you want all of your boxes to align to look professional. Again, when it's just on your computer screen, you won't be able to see it, but when something is half an inch off and it's 5 feet tall, you will see just how odd your poster comes out looking. The align tool is your friend. Groups and align, absolutely essential for making a poster. Holding down the shift key allows you to select multiple things. Maybe you guys, have been playing in PowerPoint since you were 2 years old and you know all of this. Great, ignore this slide. For any of you that have not come across these little tricks of the trade, useful little things to know. Select multiple things and group them. And then the final thing here is the align tool. Like I said, best friend, absolute best friend in the poster making world. That align tool under shaped formats. I've given you some specs for how to make your pictures the best, because you guys are probably gonna copy and paste some pictures from Google for just like, what does strep pneumonia look like? Or what does a mouse look like? And when you blow that picture up to 5 feet, you're gonna be bummed if it's blurry. You're not gonna know if it's blurry until it's been printed at 5 feet. And printing services will not reprint you a poster because you didn't know it was blurry ahead of time. So the average sized picture that you're gonna see from afar is gonna be 4 to 5 inches. Used colored boxes and arrows to point to the exact thing that you are trying to highlight. What is your takeaway message? And a big thing of data, point to it. Use colored boxes. Really highlight your takeaway. And then when you have your poster and it's huge, use the zoom tool at the bottom to actually look at it at 100% through the whole thing and make sure that it looks good. In a paper, you guys have seen that there are figure legends and table titles. All of those are really important for giving you the information about what any acronyms are that you've used. There are some acronyms like the level of DNA. You don't need to define DNA. We're good with DNA at this stage. But if I use what is called a chemically defined media, meaning that I know every little chemical that I put in this bacterial media. I call that CDM. You wouldn't know that what I said that this was grown in CDM means. I need to define that because that is not a standard term in our field. So make sure that your legends have information about the statistics you used and any acronyms. Texts on axes and legends, they need to be big enough to be read. If they're super tiny and I can't read them when I'm standing 2 feet away talking to you, I'm not learning anything from your data because I can't see the legend. And then finally, be consistent. Pick a color scheme, pick a size for your fonts. You can use different colors for different groups. Avoid neons. Just, look like a sane person. You don't want some psychedelics going on behind you. We'll get to some of these examples of some, what I'm going to call creative scientists at the end. You want your poster to be attractive, but professional. It's an interesting line. This is why you send your poster to other people who have done this and some lay people. For me, that meant my mom. My mom was a voice major. She knows no science. So I'd be able to show her this is like, can you take anything away from this? And they should be able to learn something. And most importantly, it should not give them a headache looking at it. Like I said, zoom out, make sure that, and then zoom out to a one-page thing, make sure that as a poster, it just looks good. So I've given you approximates for what percent of your poster should be text versus picture versus white space. White space is important, guys. It looks scary. It looks like you're not optimizing your space. But if you just have a block of information, it's hard to read and it's it's going to be passed over. Someone's not going to think that it's worth their time to dissect the craziness that is in front of them. So I've given you the information about the defaults on margins. Mostly that's for printing. If the margin is a little bit off and you lose your title, that's problematic. Really going over it and over and over it again, you'll learn what is just not needed. There's a lot of science. There's a lot that you each know. You don't need to, this isn't a book report. This isn't a final exam. Don't dump everything you know on this poster. Keep your goal in mind, keep your title in mind, and if it doesn't correlate to those two things, it's not needed today. When you're back and looking at it, is this an attractive thing? Is this poster Insta-worthy? Key point with that. I make this as a joke, but I have to then tell you, never put unpublished science online. Because you can have your lab scooped of their data if you publish this online. Don't do it, guys. It's real problematic. It is also against UAB research guidelines. Some of that training that you guys may have taken to get in the lab says don't put stuff online. That includes your poster. So you can put a picture of yourself next to the poster, like a title of the poster, because I believe, Gareth, that the posters, the titles are usually public knowledge. They're part of a symposium brochure. They're part of an abstract book. Titles, perfectly fine. Anything with data on it, absolutely not going up online. Edit this for typos. We've gone over this. Print it out to read the whole thing. Let other people read it. And then if this were something that is in person, and that this is not today's problem, but when you go on and do your next one, you can print out a few versions as just the single-sized paper version and hand out to people who might be interested in a collaboration. This is, again, why it's important for the PI to know what you're presenting. Because if you hand their data, and legally, guys, it's important to know that UAB and that PI owns that data. Period. It is not yours. It is UAB, the university only owns to someone else. It can be a problem. So you can print this out. You can hand it to people as long as the PI knows what you're doing. When you're presenting your poster, you are representing yourself as a scientist. You're also representing that lab. So dress professionally. That means no sunglasses, no hats, no gum. Keep your hands out of your pockets. Don't have a note card. You should be practiced. This is stuff you did. You should know enough about it to stand there confidently and say what you did. If possible, wear a name tag. It's going with, well, this is online this time, but you have your UAB badge. If you're at a different conference and you can have a sticker name badge, the reason that's important is because when you walk away, you want other people to remember that you are that person who talked about that science. And you can say your name in the beginning, and 5 minutes later, I don't remember your name. No one does. So having a name tag is helpful in getting you remembered and your science remembered. And most importantly, just know what you're talking about. You're gonna be the one feeling foolish for 2 hours if you don't know what you're doing. Make sure when you're reading everything, if putting together this poster should give you the opportunity to ask questions about stuff you didn't realize you didn't fully understand. And you now have that opportunity to ask questions before you have to present it in front of people. So now everybody can get in that chat window. We're going to go over and I'm going to show you some posters and we're going to review them. Like I said, no feelings hurt. Either these are Google things that I don't care about, or these are ones I worked on from my last lab. Again, you won't hurt my feelings. I am always looking for ways to improve, and maybe you guys have a new perspective. So in this chat for the next few minutes, we're going to go over some. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is perfect, what you rank this poster. The second thing is what could be improved. And the third thing is what can you do well. It's really important. We become really focused on being critical of things that sometimes we forget that we can learn something from everything. So each one of these has something they did well that we can learn from. So what do you guys think of this guy? Pigs in space. So based on the information I've given you, go into the chat, see what are your thoughts? Seeing too dark, very busy. No pictures, not enough pictures. So if you were walking away from this poster and you went, the next person you see is your best friend, and you were like, that poster, what would you say about it? How in like one sentence would you describe that poster? The sections are clear. That's true. He does a good job at putting, like, we know where to find the abstract. We know where to find his conclusions. The words with no post, words are, yeah. Block texts, not good. This is what it looks like, guys, when you write too much. Your brain hurts, your eyes hurt, and you just don't want to. None of us want to read this, right? We're all looking at this being like, nope, I'm going to the next one. I want nothing to do with it. The only reason I would stop and be like, huh, pigs in space. No graphs. So yeah, in general, he does a good job with bracketing the information. You know exactly what the sections are. But we're going back to what are the goals of the science? What are the goals of being there? Would this poster give us any idea, any motivation to want to collaborate with this person? Would this poster give us any real knowledge about what they did? No. So I don't want to work with you, and I don't even want to learn what you did. That is a failed poster, because I don't want anything to do with any of that. All right. What about this guy? Or girl. This was Stephanie. Font is too small. It looks clean and aligned. Good. Okay, visuals. Well, at least we have visuals now. We're getting somewhere. Great headings. Too much text under each figure. So, I don't know. So you guys have, how many of you guys have read primary scientific literature? Done a journal club, someone's published this paper. They have copy and pasted page after page of their paper and just put it on here. This is an example of simplify it. One of you highlighted the legends. That is exactly what a legend in a paper looks like. We don't need that. We don't need all of those pictures aligned like that, and we definitely don't need that figure legend to be that much of a brick, because that's all that we see from the results. We don't have any sort of hypothesis. We have no information about how that work was done. All we see, and then he's got one, like, what is that? 6 bullets she's got at the bottom that says conclusions. From all of that, you've only got 6 conclusions? This is a prime example of that problem in the beginning where your attention span at the beginning was like, oh, that's a cool title. I want to learn about that. And then you immediately tank, because I'm not reading all of those figure legends to figure out what you did, when you did it, and where it was going, what was significant. You need a bolded conclusion over all of that. And so that is a great way to do a paper. That is not what a poster session is about. What about this person studying the oral microbiome and gingivitis? Yeah, I have to say, I like the color. My favorite colors are purple and green. I did used to like all of my titles and stuff were bracketed in purple bars, purple text boxes, and then I would wear purple. But the text box was a little bit less than a human mouth. Again, overall, this is just distracting, right? If you went and said, hey, go look at, you would just say the mouth poster. You don't remember anything about their science. You don't remember anything about who they were. Maybe they have this fantastic brain. They know tons of stuff, but they look foolish, right? You don't want someone going away and say they look foolish. You're there to represent yourself as a budding scientist. I don't want to work with fools. So avoid this brainwave. It may occur to you to be cool and to be creative. This is not the creativity stream that you want to follow. But their sections are better, right? We can see what we can see when we see through the teeth is that we have big pictures, we have little bits of text, we have a well labeled on the side here what their graph was. We're getting better if we just deleted the background. Like I said, this was my first poster that I ever presented as an undergrad. What are your thoughts? Now, to be clear, this is not the first version of my first poster. My first version looked a lot more ridiculous. There was a lot more writing. There was a lot less section headings to guide my audience. This comes about by getting it done in time to have someone better than you or more experienced than you look at it. So you're right, though, the font is too small. Granted, this is a picture I took of it hanging up on a wall, but yeah, my font in all of these boxes is still too small. Not ideal. So nowadays, sometimes the conferences for poster sections don't want you to have your abstract because the abstract is in a booklet. They can look at the abstract. They don't need to see the abstract again on the wall. What about this one? Font's pretty small again. So each section in here, the heading tells you exactly what you're going to get out of that information. So this is the conclusion sentence for this figure. One of the things that I thought Robert did great in this was this methods section that like is very visual so that I can learn what he's doing in this background and method section. So I thought the visuals were great in there. And the same with the conclusions. Having conclusions that's a mechanism rather than just bullets makes you want to look at it and want to figure it out. So that's the last one we're going to do of that. You guys can look through the rest of them. So now we've got about 5 minutes officially, but I can stay till whenever for any questions you guys have on how to make a poster, on how to present a poster that may be overlapping with the how to give a good presentation later, but I can step on someone's toes. And I've included again down here at the bottom my email for you guys. Reach out if you can be helpful, but remember, responding to you is not my main job. I get paid to do other things, so you need to give me time to get back to you. So 24 to 48 hours is considered professional if you're going to ask for someone's help. If you say this needs to be submitted in 10 minutes, I can't help you. Any questions? Chat or audioly?
Christine, I was just going to chime in here too. If anyone has any expo specific questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. So, all right. If I were to make a poster, would you be willing to look it over? Yeah. Like I said, just give me time. And make sure it's a good version, guys. Like, if you're gonna send it out to someone, I've done it too. We all are gonna have some typos. But if I see that this is, real rough, I'm not gonna spend my time making every little edit to it. Make sure it's a good version that you send out, that you're representing yourself well. But obviously, Marina, I don't know your specific work. This isn't a comment on you. It's just the type of things I have been handed in the past. But yeah, by all means, email me. Good question of when is your symposium, expo?
So Expo is held July 20th through the 24th. As I said before, abstracts are due on the 10th of July. So you should have plenty of time between submitting your abstract and the event to upload your poster. We do have a lot of good information on the Expo website.